And I would just like to comment or quote His Holiness Ramswamy. A few years ago at the Manor, he said that those who have never done book distribution don't really get what this movement's about. And therefore it's important that we actually try to do that. Even if it's difficult, it's not easy for most people to do that. But when you do it and you get this experience of exhilaration, ecstatic bliss, it's not there every time, but when you get it, then you won't find it anywhere else. And it's worth the effort. And then we'll get what it's all about. ISKCON Govinda ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 3, entitled Rishabdev's Appearance, text 4 and 5, is that right? Okay, I don't know if it's possible to chant this in any meter, is it?
We've just been running through it and then going to it.
That must have been quite fun. I'd like to have that. Okay, so I guess I'll just do that and then we'll do the word for word. Ritvija uchu arhasi mahur ahatma. So arhatamarhanam asma kam anupatanam namo nama iti tavat sad upashik shitam korihati puman prakriti guna vyatikara matir anisha isvarasya parasya prakriti purashayor arvak tanabir namarupa kritibi rupa nirupanam sakala jana nikaya vrijina nirasa shivatama pravara guna ganaika desha katanad rite. Okay, word for word. Ritvija uchu. The priest said, Arhasi, please accept. Muhu, again and again. Arhat Tama, O most exalted, worshipable person. Arhanam, offering of worship. Asmakam, of us. Anupatanam, who are your servants. Nama, respectful obeisances. Nama, respectful obeisances. Iti, thus, etavat, so far. Sat, by exalted personalities. Upashikshitam, instructed. Ka, what? Arhati, is able to make. Puman, man. Prakriti, of material nature. Guna, of the modes. Vyatikara, in the transformations. Mati, whose mind is absorbed. Anisha, who is most incapable. Ishvarasya, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Parasya, beyond. Prakriti, Purasha, yo, the jurisdiction of the three modes of material nature. Arvaktanabi, which do not reach up to, or which are of this material world. Namarupa akritibi, by names, forms, and qualities. Rupa, of your nature or position. Nirupanam, ascertainment, perception. Sakala, all. Jananikaya, of mankind. Vrijina, sinful actions. Nirasana, which wipe out Shivatama, most auspicious, Pravara, excellent, Gunagana, of the transcendental qualities, Ekadesha, one part, Katanat, by speaking, Rite, except. Translation: The priests began to offer prayers to the Lord, saying, O most worshipable one, we are simply your servants. Although you are full in yourself, please, out of your causeless mercy, accept a little service from us, your eternal servants. We are not actually aware of your transcendental form, but we can simply offer our respectful obeisances again and again as instructed by the Vedic literatures and authorized acharyas. Materialistic living entities are very much attracted to the modes of material nature, and therefore they are never perfect. But you are above the jurisdiction of all material conceptions. Your name, form, and qualities are all transcendental and beyond the conception of experimental knowledge. Indeed, who can conceive of you? In the material world, we can perceive only material names and qualities. We have no other power than to offer our respectful obeisances and prayers unto you, the transcendental person. The chanting of your auspicious transcendental qualities will wipe out the sins of all mankind. That is the most auspicious activity for us, and we can thus partially understand your supernatural position. Please repeat. The priests began to offer prayers to the Lord, saying, O most worshipable one, we are simply your servants. Although you are full in yourself, please, out of your causeless mercy, accept a little service from us, your eternal servants. We are not actually aware of your transcendental form, but we can simply offer our respectful obeisances again and again, as instructed by the Vedic literatures and authorized acharyas. Materialistic living entities are very much attracted to the modes of material nature, and therefore they are never perfect. But you are above the jurisdiction of all material conceptions. Your name, form, and qualities are all transcendental and beyond the conception of experimental knowledge. Indeed, who can conceive of you? In the material world, we can perceive only material names and qualities. We have no other power than to offer our respectful obeisances and prayers unto you, the transcendental person. The chanting of your auspicious transcendental qualities will wipe out the sins of all mankind. That is the most auspicious activity for us, and we can thus partially understand your supernatural position. Srila Prabhupada's purport ki jai. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has nothing to do with material perception. Even the impersonalist Shankaracharya says Narayana Parovyaktat. Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is beyond the material conception. We cannot concoct the form and attributes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We must simply accept the description given in Vedic literatures about the Lord's form and activities as stated in Brahma Samhita 529. Chintamani prakara sadma shukabha vriksha lakshavate shushurabhira vipalayantam lakshmi sahasra sata sambrama sevyamanham govindamadi purusham tamam bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor who is tending the cows, yielding all desires in abodes built with spiritual gems and surrounded by millions of purpose trees. He is always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds and thousands of goddesses of fortune. We can have some conception of the absolute truth, his form and his attributes, simply by reading the descriptions given in Vedic literatures and authoritative statements given by exalted personalities like Brahma, Narada, Shukadeva Goswami, and others. Srila Rupa Goswami says, Ata Shri Krishna Namadi Nabhaved Graham Indriyai. We cannot conceive the name, form, and qualities of Sri Krishna through our material senses. Because of this, other names for the Lord are Adhokshaja and Aprakrita, which indicate that he's beyond any material senses. Out of his causeless mercy upon his devotees, the Lord appeared before Maharaj Nabi. Similarly, when we are engaged in the Lord's devotional service, the Lord reveals himself to us. Sevon mukhe jivado swayam eva spiratyada. That is the only way to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. Bhaktyamam abhijanati yavanyas chasmi tatvata. One can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead through devotional service. There is no other way. We have to hear from the authorities and from the Shastras and consider the Supreme Lord in terms of their statements. We cannot imagine or concoct forms and attributes of the Lord. Om Agyanat Manandashya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshun Militam Yana Tasma Shigrive Namaha Kam Karoti Vachalam Bhangam Lagate Grim Yakripatamam Vande Shugrim Jinitaranam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Hari Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Priests began to offer prayer to the Lord, saying, O most worshipable one, we are simply your servants. Although you are full in yourself, please out of your causeless mercy accept a little service from us, your eternal servants. We are not actually aware of your transcendental form, but we can simply offer our respectful obeisances again and again. As instructed by the Vedic literatures and authorized acharyas, materialistic living entities are very much attracted to the modes of material nature, and therefore they are never perfect, but you are above the jurisdiction of all material conceptions. Your name, form, and qualities are all transcendental and beyond the conception of experimental knowledge. Indeed, who can conceive of you? In the material world, we can perceive only material names and qualities. We have no other power than to offer our respectful obeisances and prayers unto you, the transcendental person. The chanting of your auspicious transcendental qualities will wipe out the sins of all mankind. That is the most auspicious activity for us, and we can thus partially understand your supernatural position. Quite a purport, isn't it? A lot of instructions and nectar in there. Also in the purport, Srila Prabhupada has made some very interesting points. First of all, he's talking about the Supreme Lord as being transcendental to the creation, and then he mentions a few names which describe the Lord as being transcendental to the creation. Can anyone remember them?
I hope so.
Yeah, that was a hard one for you to remember, wasn't it? And Ahoksha means?
Means beyond experimentation.
Yeah. And another one? Anybody? Do you have it?
Aprakrita.
Yeah, and that means?
Not confined by material energy.
Yeah. Basically, he said that both of them mean beyond material senses. So prakriti means material energy. So aprakrita means beyond the material energy. Anyone know any other names which describe the Lord as being above material energy, above the creation? He's known as Nirguna, isn't it, sometimes? So in the impersonalists, they sometimes translate that as meaning, or they interpret it as meaning that he has no qualities. But as guna refers to material qualities, then it means that he actually has no material qualities. He's not bound by tamagun, rajagun, sattvagun, just like we are. We find comfort in these gunas, but actually this is a kind of insane, because if you were bound up by ropes and you think, oh, this is a very nice rope, you know, these ropes are, the mode of ignorance rope is like a greasy old smelly thing, and you think, oh, this is a very comfortable rope. And then somebody in the mode of passion has maybe got some like brightly coloured ropes, day glow ropes or something. Oh, this is really cool, these ropes. And somebody in the mode of goodness has got some nice silk ropes, scented. And we think, oh, these ropes are the best ropes. But it's still ropes, isn't it? We're still bound. So guna means rope. So if we, therefore it's insane. And we have this kind of affection for material energy. Srila Prabhupada says we consider it, our affinity for the material nature is second nature. But it's our second nature, it's not our first nature. But because we are so, we're so familiar with the modes which we're covered by, we just accept it as being us. You know, somebody in the mode of ignorance, they feel very comfortable being sleepy or being apathetic, armchair philosophies that are going to change the world, and all they can do is like get into tamagun more and more, and they never do anything with life, and their life passes them by, and then they just take birth as a bear or something like that. Indolence, sleep, laziness. These are some of the qualities of mode of ignorance. Anyone else remember any other qualities of mode of ignorance? The glories of tamagun.
Expert at insulting others.
Expert at insulting others. That's Kali Yuga, isn't it?
Always an illusion.
Always an illusion. Yeah. That's very attractive, isn't it? And people think that it's great, they're very intelligent if they can insult everybody and nobody can insult them. And therefore nowadays people are considered intelligent if they can put everyone else down and nobody can put them down, or they can avoid it. And nowadays, you know, most humour is just about putting someone down, isn't it? You know, with all this political correct stuff going on, it's going to come at the point there'll be no room for humour any longer, because most jokes are at someone's expense, isn't it? Either some kind of gender thing or race thing or something like that. So what's going to be left for them? And a mode of passion, what have we got there? What are the qualities of the person bound by the mode of passion? Intense endeavour, unlimited desires. What else?
Hankering.
Hankering. And from hankering later on comes lamenting. So from passion comes ignorance and hoaxture.
Lots of chilies in the subject.
What's that?
Lots of chilies in the subject.
Lots of chilies in the subject. I don't remember reading that in the Bhagavad Gita, but it does say foods in the mode of passion is too hot. Some people may say that's subjective, though. Yeah, something else in the mode of passion.
Want to be the centre of attention.
Yeah, so the kind of subtle desire for fame, or gross desire for fame. So fame and material gain, these are the things that they endeavour very much for. Even sometimes people, I remember, I think it was Javit told me this years ago, that there was one artist, his, what is it you call it when an artist does their...
Signature. Signature.
Not signature. Signature would mean...
Swan song.
Swan song or piece de resistance or whatever you call it, right? So anyway, his epitome of his artwork was to fill this skip full of razor blades and dive into it. This was his artistic expression. And of course, we would just consider, what a madman. But he was thinking in the name of art, he would do this, something unique. And of course, he didn't survive. So in order to get a little fame, then this person was throwing away his very, very valuable human form of life. There's nothing more valuable we can attain in this world than the human form of life, because by that human form of life, then we can attain the supreme destination. Unless you happen to get some very, very rare special mercy that, like Lord Chaitanya happens to tread upon you or something like that, or you get some Mahaprasad directly from the Lord's hand. So human form of life is generally what's considered the thing to attain. And later on in the fifth canto, it's explaining that the various planetary systems of material world, 14 planetary systems, 7 lower and 7 higher. And the living entity goes to these lower planetary systems to suffer the reactions of their impious activities, and goes to the higher planetary systems to enjoy the results of the pious activities, and then says, but all of them come back to the earth again. So we may, for some time, do some pious activity and go to the higher planets to enjoy for some time, but we have to come back again. Or we may commit some sinful activities and have to go and suffer, and then we get to come back again to try again. So when we become aware of this message of the personality of Godhead, then it's the same thing to do is actually pursue this message and take advantage of it. And so Prabhupada gave a couple of names there just for us to chew over, but there's many, many names. And of course, all the names of the Lord are transcendental, and some of them describe the Lord as being transcendental to the creation. Asamordva is another one. It means that no one is equal to, no one is greater than. So the mode of goodness, yeah. So what are symptoms of mode of goodness, and how is that binding? Happiness and knowledge. And what kind of knowledge would that be? Sorry?
Not transcendental knowledge. Very clever scientists or philosophers or poets.
Yeah, so how is material mode of goodness binding? Because sometimes people become attracted by the mode of goodness, and then they don't see it as binding.
They say that actually it's not pure loving goodness, it's always tainted with passion and ignorance. But if you get pure Shuddha, then it's transcendental. So it's not actually pure. It's not actually the real loving goodness.
So it's considered that we should try to make our life mode of goodness. So when you look at the activities in the mode of goodness, food mode of goodness, things like that, then these are prescribed things. But unless it's offered to Krishna, it still is material. Unless it's connected with Krishna, then it's still binding, isn't it? And then they say that those in the mode of goodness are conditioned by a sense of happiness. So if we simply want to be happy in the material world, then we're going to be disappointed because something or someone will come along and interfere with that, interrupt that. We just take for example, Hiranyakashipu. Now these demons, they had great knowledge of the Vedic literatures, how to perform great tapasyas and things like that. And by performing tapasyas, even Hiranyakashipu attracted the attention of Lord Brahma, who came and gave him many, many benedictions. But ultimately his goal, even though he had knowledge of the Vedic literatures and he was able to perform great austerities where he could maintain his life air within his bones, his body was already emaciated, eaten by termites, etc. If it was us, the first time there was a termite bit us, we'd be running off back to the city, wouldn't we? Like, oh, I'm out of here. But he could tolerate all that. So he knew about tolerance and all these qualities. But ultimately his goal wasn't to satisfy Krishna. It was so that he could become eternal and he could just satisfy himself. But even such a person, and nobody can do this nowadays, but even such a person as him, ultimately, then his plan for eternal life in the material world was frustrated. So if that's not going to work for someone like him, then what about our little puny endeavours to create some kind of permanent situation in the material world? They say there's only two people who can be happy in the material world. One is pure devotee, and one is a madman. And why would a madman be happy in this world?
Oblivious to what's going on around.
Oblivious. Yeah. People don't want to be woken up. They don't want to be drawn to their attention. They don't want their attention drawn to the things they're oblivious of. Even simple thing like you try to tell someone that Stop eating meat. It's cruel to the animals. This is terrible suffering you're putting them through simply because you want to eat meat. Oh, don't tell me that. I don't want to know. Why? Because they don't want their conscience bothered, because they just want to enjoy. But this is the duty of the devotee, and this is the compassion of the devotee, that we will go and tell people, what you're doing is going to cause you suffering. You might be enjoying now, but you're going to have to suffer for it. Oh, I'm enjoying. Don't you worry about me. There's no afterlife. Just stick my head in the sand and ignore all sorts of ignore all sorts of signs. So they say that the atheist sees so much wrong in the world that he thinks that there must be no God. If there was a God, why is all these things going wrong? So he denies God like that. And it's very convenient for him to do that, because then he can just enjoy and doesn't have to have any conscience, or simply material altruistic conscience. But then the theist, the devotee, thinks there's so much amazing things, so much right in this world, therefore there must be a God. How are these planets floating in the sky? And how are millions of insects swarming around and not bumping into each other? From the macrocosm to the microcosm, there's so much organization. The devotee thinks, how can one think there isn't a God? And therefore, each person chooses their own destination. They choose the path they want to follow. And Sankaracharya, he was saying, Narayano Parovyakthat, that the Lord is beyond the material conception. So we cannot conceive of the Lord. We've heard before many times that one would never come to the understanding that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is a blue cowherd boy that plays a flute. And he likes milk sweets and things like that. So nobody who is a great philosopher would come to that conclusion on their own. So therefore it has to be by revelation. So therefore the different ways of acquiring knowledge by pratyaksha, sense perception, direct sense perception that is limited, and by anumana, or by following the mind and senses. That is also limited because you cannot come to this conclusion who the Supreme Lord is. So it's only by Shabda Brahma, or by accepting higher knowledge given from above. And that means Tadvadi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadikshanti te jnanam jnaninas tatvadarshanaha. That just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge into you because he has seen the truth. And he's seen the truth because he's got a spiritual master who also is a spiritual master, all the way to Krishna. And Krishna personally revealed himself to Lord Brahma after his mature meditation. Then the Lord revealed himself. And Lord Brahma, through the transcendental sound vibration, is revealing the Lord. So it's mentioned that in Kali Yuga we see the Lord through the ears, not through our eyes. So there's a nice point here in the verse that says, in the material world we can perceive only material names and qualities. We have no other power than to offer respectful obeisances and prayers unto you, the transcendental person. The chanting of your auspicious transcendental qualities will wipe out the sins of all mankind. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says there's only two things of any substance in the material world, and that is the jiva and the holy name. So by the association of the Lord's holy name as given by the spiritual master, then the Lord gradually reveals himself. And it's through devotional service. When we're chanting, we're asking for service. And this service has given us the opportunity to become humble. So the Lord is at Marama. He's self-satisfied. He doesn't need us, and he doesn't need anything from us. But yet he kindly gives access back to him, and this access is via the spiritual master. But this is not some impersonal thing. Impersonalist mood is we learn something from someone, then we don't need them any longer, and I'll just take all the credit for myself. This is the impersonalist proud thing. The Prabhupada describes the impersonalist attitude toward the spiritual master is just like a ladder. You may use a ladder to get onto a roof, but once you've got on there, you don't need the ladder, you kick it away. But that's kind of foolish. If anyone's ever been up a roof, you ever kicked your ladder away? What if you need it? You're going to stay up there forever. So this is, or they say that this, Prabhupada gives the other example says that you sit opposite the spiritual master, you take knowledge from him, then you kill him and take his place. So not necessarily physically killing him, but means that basically I don't need you any longer, now I'm self-realized. And so this is such a very selfish, proud type of attitude. But the devotee, they're thinking whatever they are, which is good, is by the mercy of Krishna and by the mercy of the devotees and the spiritual master, by what they've learned from Shastra. And Prabhupada says, whatever good is by the mercy of the Vaishnavas, Guru and Vaishnavas, and whatever faults I have, then that is my foolishness. We don't blame any other person for our own faults, we only take responsibility for ourselves. So in this way, the devotee is always improving. As Vaisheshika often says, ABS, always better service. We don't think, I've done enough. Okay, that's good. Now my service is perfect. I've done enough quantity, or my quality is good enough. I don't have to improve. The devotee never thinks like that. We're always thinking how we can do better. And Krishna will always be revealing how we can do better. Doesn't mean to say we have to stay up 25 hours a day to do better. Because there's only so many hours in a day. And if we don't sleep, then that will become a disservice because we won't be able to stay awake in class, won't be able to stay awake when we're driving, we'll lose touch with reality. Has anybody ever went prolonged period of time without sleep? And what happens? What are the effects of that?
The dream is kind of emergent in your daytime.
You don't know if you're dreaming or whether you're awake. And then later on you think, did that happen or was that a dream? So night dream, daydream, that's also there. But yeah, you try to, the kind of, the distinction between wake and sleep gets smudged. And the distinction between reality and what's going on in the mind also gets smudged. Anyone else get something they experience by staying up too long? Hallucination.
Delusions of grandeur.
Delusions of grandeur. Yeah. So therefore, sometimes people, they may get false motivated by want to prematurely give up. Prabhupada says that we should reduce eating, sleeping, mating, and defending to zero. But if we try to prematurely give these up so we look like a big shot in front of people, then what happens is it becomes inauspicious. For example, we give up sleeping too early. There was that example of one person who said, I think I'll give up sleeping. And within the next minute, he was fast asleep. So we can't prematurely give it up. And if we try to give it up too early, then Krishna says one cannot be a yogi if one doesn't eat enough or eats too much, doesn't sleep enough or sleeps too much. So we have to create that balance. But the balance shouldn't be that we dictate. Our authority shouldn't dictate to us, if someone says, Prabhu, you need to go and sleep. No, I want to stay awake, it's Krishna conscious, and you're going to crash the car and kill everybody. Or you're, you don't know whether you're walking around like a half-shot knife. So we have to sleep adequately, and if someone says you're sleeping too much, you're in the mode of ignorance. Oh, but Prabhu, I can never get enough sleep. There was one devotee, I knew him well, was from Paisley, and he used to sleep minimum 12 hours a day. He didn't live in the temple, so don't anyone get any ideas thinking we're going to let you sleep for 12 hours in the day. But he used to sleep 12 to 14 hours a day. We said to him, Andy, how do you feel when you get up? Do you feel like really refreshed? He says, no, I feel very tired. So no matter how much sleep you take, you're never going to feel like really refreshed. To get out the mods, we have to endeavour to get out the mods and then we'll feel refreshed. But you can never just like sleep it out. Funny thing is, actually, he must have slept his quota, because I met him a few years later and he said he was suffering from insomnia. He couldn't sleep at all. It was as if, he'd slept his quota and now he couldn't get to sleep any longer. So the same with the other things. If we try to give up artificially fasting too much, then that can be disastrous as well. Sometimes people get a taste for fasting and then they don't know when to stop. Prabhupada said any fool can fast, but it takes a wise person to break it. So we need to know when to stop, how to fast, and doing it for the right purpose. So the motivation of the devotee is to do it for pleasing Guru and Krishna. If they don't ask for it, then we don't do it. We don't just do it ourselves and try to get ourselves some fame. Just like Prabhupada, one time there was one disciple who was performing austerities off his own back. He was cutting down on food and he was hardly eating anything. And then Prabhupada called him and says, okay, I want you to take prasadam sumptuously. So he was eating prasadam, and then a few months later he got very big, and Prabhupada said to him, now I want you to fast. And he was like really taken aback. He says, when you want to fast, you can do it, but when I tell you to fast, you don't want to do it. This is nonsense. So Prabhupada gave him that lesson. Over a few months, he showed him a very wise lesson, that he was just motivated to do it for himself, for his own self-gain, his own fame. Similarly, one devotee now Prabhupada said we should chant 16 rounds minimum on the beads, unlimited off the beads. And Prabhupada was very much in favour of devotees increasing their chanting, not at the expense of not doing their duty though. But one devotee decided he was going to chant extra rounds, and then the reports were coming back to Prabhupada, he's chanting 32 rounds a day. Now he wants to chant 42 rounds a day. Now he wants to chant 64 rounds a day. Now he wants to live in a tree and chant all day long. Prabhupada says, I want. This is just sense gratification. So he was thinking that, he wasn't necessarily thinking that it was pleasing to Prabhupada, because he never asked. But he just did it off his own back. Now, if we have some spare time, we can read, we can chant, we can do like that. And there's so much time. If we want to increase our hearing and chanting, there's nothing can stop us from doing that. How much time do we waste? How much time do we waste on social media, on our gadgets, etc.? And how much time do we waste just spacing out, just letting the mind go somewhere and coming to no conclusion? Or how much time do we waste in prajalpa? What does prajalpa mean? Nonsense. Yeah, and what's another translation for it? Gramya Katha, which means village talk, like gossiping, and another. Inconsequential talk. It means it comes to nothing. So devotional service is actually full of meaning, and the more we engage ourselves in authorized devotional service, the more meaningful it becomes. And then the true purpose of the human form of life can be realized, but it has to be authorized. In order for it to be realized, it has to be authorized. We can't concoct something, and this is the main point here that Prabhupada says, we cannot concoct who the Supreme Lord is. We can't concoct what that journey is to realize the Supreme Lord. So it has to be authorized. So here in the beginning of this verse, the priests began to offer prayers to the Lord, saying, O most worshipable one, we are simply your servants. Although you are full in yourself, so that means Atmarama, please, out of your causeless mercy, accept a little service from us, your eternal servants. So these four things, first of all, they say, please, and then out of your causeless mercy, and then accept a little service from us, and then your eternal servants. So these statements are not just some kind of whimsical, polite sentence that they're saying, they're actually full of meaning. So this mood of the word please is basically they know that the Lord doesn't have to accept anything from them. So it's not that they're doing service and say, there you go, Krishna. I hope you're grateful for that. That's me done a day's Sankirtan, or that's me cleaned the temple or cut the vegetables. And then after doing it for a few weeks, you think, oh, Krishna, I've been cutting these vegetables or cleaning this temple or distributing these books for weeks now, you know, and I'm not getting any bliss. What's happening here? You owe me some bliss. If you don't do it, then I'm not going to do it. I'm going on strike. And then the Bhaktas Union comes out and we start going out with placards in front of the deities. We want more bliss, or we're not doing the service. So this is not going to happen. So the word please means that we're beseeching Lord, please accept my service. You don't have to accept anything from me. You don't need anything from me. And Prabhupada says, we don't even have the right to approach Krishna. So when we realize that, we think, well, how can I dare think that Krishna owes me something? It's just so puffed up. We have this inherent pride, which we've had to harden ourselves with to survive in the material world. But now we're not trying to survive in the material world, we're trying to get out of it. And we're trying to connect with the Lord. And this please, Krishna is pleased by that, because when we recognize Krishna doesn't have to accept anything from us, but only by his causeless mercy. And then he's not in debt to us. In fact, by the spiritual master giving us devotional service, which is the interesting thing about spiritual life, is that the more that you give it to others, the more you get yourself. And the more you do, the more in debt you are to your spiritual master, because you're making all this advancement, and it's by his mercy. So, but out of the Lord's free will, so it says, please, out of your causeless mercy. So by his free will and out of his kindness, then he accepts it. And he's saying, the devotees here are saying, accept a little service from us. They're recognizing that this offering of service is for their benefit, not for Krishna's benefit. And that whatever service they offer, it's not that we can become proud of it. And it's offered with humility. It's not that I've done so much and now I don't need to bother. No, and because they're thinking that their service is actually a little service and that we are your eternal servants, so they're accepting the position as eternal servants, not that, okay, now I've done enough, now I can enjoy. This is the material, Prabhupada says, the work-reward system of the material world. So that is within our heart. And to eradicate that, we have to eradicate this mentality of work-reward. That Krishna doesn't owe us anything. But actually, by realizing that we're going to get the greatest gain, which is to get out of this material world once and for all, into the world of eternality, bliss, and knowledge. And what we have to gain from this devotional service is not something that can be bought in the material world, because we're used to giving our energy, giving our resources to get something in return, then we're thinking something can be bought. But Krishna can't be bought by anything external, only by devotion and only by a devotional attitude. And even if our service is little, just like that devotee who had nothing and he was offering to Krishna Manasa Puja, offering worship in the mind because he had nothing. So he was offering to his deity great opulent offerings every day and sweet rice, etc. And one time he went to check if the sweet rice was cool. He put his finger in it, and in his meditation he was so absorbed that he burnt his finger. And Lord Vishnu was laughing at this. He was witnessing it. And Lakshmi asked him, what are you laughing at? And he said, oh, my devotee, he's such a great devotee that he's He's off every day. He offers me these things. He's nothing, but he's going to the trouble of trying to make such nice offerings. And the Lord benedicted him by his darshan. So whatever comes into our possession, in order to be not entangled by it, then we have to use it in Krishna's service. And the next point he says here, we're not actually aware of your transcendental form, but we can simply offer our respectful obeisances again and again as instructed by the Vedic literatures and authorized acharyas. So what would that mean? We're not actually aware of your transcendental form.
I was going to ask that question.
I beat you to it. What's your answer?
And I was thinking about it. Krishna says if you become conscious of me, you pass over all the obstacles. So actually being aware, like now the Lord's appeared up in flames, and that's momentarily, then he'll be gone again. But when he goes, they're hoping that they can retain that consciousness. So the Lord can come and go externally, but internally we want him to stay. So the real awareness, something that's permanent.
Okay. Anyone else got any other contributions on that? So that's good, thank you. I was also thinking that we're not actually aware of your transcendental form means that they're not proclaiming to be self-realized souls. And it's alluding to the fact that even though they're not self-realized souls, they're performing sadhana bhakti. We simply offer our respectful obeisance again and again as instructed by the Vedic literatures and authorized acharya. So it means they're not cheaply taking it. They're not just like want to fast forward to the transcendental realization. And just like sometimes someone is telling a joke and then someone comes in with a punchline before you've said the rest of the joke. It's what you'd call a spoiler, right? Spoiler alert. Someone's telling a story and someone comes in and finishes it before you've finished your story. So similar in devotional service, if we fast forward to try to be, Jai Nectar bliss, when we're not really experiencing Jai Nectar bliss, then we're not actually, it's not real and it's not going to last. So, although sometimes even it appears that the materialists are enjoying more than us, we think, this is all about nectar and bliss and stuff like that, but I don't often feel very blissful. I don't feel like I'm getting the nectar. But we forget, like Rupa Goswami says, in the beginning, it tastes like poison, but in the end it's like nectar. But material life is like nectar in the beginning, and in the end it's like poison. So therefore we have to keep our minds sharpened, keep our intelligence sharpened by reading these transcendental literatures. Prabhupada says repetition is the mother of learning. So we don't just read it once and then that's us learned the lesson. We have to keep reading again and again because especially Kali Yuga, the material world is a place where it's easy to forget. It's set up for forgetting Krishna. So therefore we have to keep on connecting with the spiritual instructions. So I would say that it's alluding to the sadhana bhakti, that even though they're not totally realizing the Lord, they're not totally aware of the Lord at every moment, then they're following the directions of Guru and Shastra, sadhus, sadhu sangha, etc., because they know that will bring to that. So, and the last point's been made here is that the chanting of the auspicious transcendental qualities will wipe out all sins of mankind. That is the most auspicious activities for us. So therefore, in Kali Yuga, Harinam, Harinam, Harinam eva kevalam, Kalo Nishcheva Nishcheva Gatiranyata. When we talk about there is no other way but the chanting of the holy name, then sometimes people say, oh, that's sectarian, you say your way is the only way and there's no other way. But Prabhupada says here in the purport that Bhaktimam Abhijananti Yavan Yashasmi Tatvata, one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead through devotional service. There is no other way. So he's not talking about a particular type of faith. He's talking about the Lord's holy name and through devotional service. So if one can chant the holy name of the Lord and perform devotional service in whatever faith they may follow, then that is going to bring spiritual advancement, bring them closer to Krishna, bring them closer to God. But specifically, he said there's many different names of the Lord, but particularly the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is recommended because these are the most potent names of the Lord. So therefore, this Hare Krishna movement is all about chanting the holy names. And chanting the holy names, Chunadapi Sanechana, in a humble state of mind is being mentioned in this verse as well, the approach of how to serve. So there's so much within this purport itself, which we can read again and again and get so much from it. And Prabhupada says if we can understand even one word of any of these books, our life can become perfect. So that shows you that how much depth must be there. Just like if we read any of these words, if we see it completely in relation to Krishna, then our life is perfect. Okay, anyone get any questions or comments or corrections? Talks to you.
There's a story with Shrutikati, who was saying that Prabhupada was reading the Krishna book, and he said, just read one page, and your life will be perfect. And he said, oh, just one paragraph. And then he said, just one word. And then he said, even just one letter.
Yeah, these books are so auspicious. Prabhupada says that even if you touch them, their life is benefited. Prabhupada said if you only need one book, Bhagavad Gita, that's only one book. And then on another occasion he says, even if you just read this one book, Nectar of Devotion. And then on another occasion he says, this teaching of Lord Chaitanya is non-different from Bhagavad Gita. So, because they're all interconnected, then it's all true. But of course, we can't just read one word, like say we just read, it says, O Supreme Lord, so say we just read, O, okay, that's it, my life's perfect. But what have we realized? It could be, at the end of your life, could be, oh no. Yeah, but to understand that, what the meaning of that word is, then we have to read the rest of them. We have to chant, we have to serve all these things, otherwise we'll just go around going, oh, and people think you're crazy, and they'll be right.
I was thinking it ties in with the question was going to have, well, more comment, but it says that this will wipe out the sins of all mankind. Because at the yajna, there must have been other people that were there, that were maybe just wanting to go past.
Mm-hmm.
So in the same way when we do Harinam, so these people are hearing it, we're wiping out all their sin.
Yeah.
So the potency is, the amazing thing is that if you can realize it and nobody else can, then that's fine, because then everyone else will. So maybe we haven't got thousands of people running in the door to join us, but at least if we can make our chanting pure, then we can still wipe out the sins of all mankind.
Exactly. And even if they don't hear it, still purification is going on. In the Tulsi Mahatmya, it says that even if one lives near where Tulsi is being cultivated, then one's life, there's immeasurable benefit from that. They may be totally ignorant, but they happen to be living. And is it the Chaitanya Charitamrita? It talks about the devotees dancing in kirtan, and when they dance up and down, stamping on the earth, then it purifies the earth. And when their hands are outstretched, then it purifies all directions. I remember doing Harinam in Byers Road in Glasgow, West End, and this guy came up to us, and he used to visit the temple many years ago, back in the early 80s when it was Silk Hill Street, and he came and he thanked us. He says, thanks for doing this chanting. He says, because the world needs it. It's purifying the whole world by doing this. So he had this realization himself that it's, and as Prajapati Prabhu questioned Prabhupada in the morning walk, we've quoted it many times, but it's always relevant to quote again, that he says, Prabhupada, isn't it by now there's so much sinful activity going on, shouldn't there be so much reaction happening on the planet? And Prabhupada says yes. He says, so is it the Sanktan movement which is holding this back, these reactions back? Prabhupada says yes, it's holding back the tide of Kali. He says, therefore, continue with this Sanktan movement. He said, ordinarily, the reactions would be coming, but because of this Sanktan movement, it's holding back the waves of Kali Yuga, the tide of Kali Yuga. So therefore, to benefit all of mankind, and even beyond that, because most religious processes are concerned with the deliverance of human beings. But actually, the Sanktan movement is completely auspicious for all living entities. Anyone which comes in contact with the Sanktan movement is benefited. So it's a prime benediction for humanity at large and beyond humanity. So the more we become pure, then the more, just like you see Prabhupada, one person came to the West, sat under a tree, chanted, created a worldwide movement. And even if he said if he had 18 pure devotees, he could spread Krishna consciousness all over the world in so many days or something like that, wasn't it? So we shouldn't underestimate. Actually, another closer to home example was when we wanted to get permission for building Garanga Hall. Then I had the councillor and the head of planning and just giving them a tour around the place, and I brought them into the temple. Then immediately the lady who was head of planning said, "Oh, this is a very nice atmosphere in here," and you can see she was actually affected by it. And then she says, "Actually, I'm a vegetarian myself, and I've been to India, and I'm a bit into Buddhism." And she said, "Oh, how come the atmosphere is so charged?" And I said, "It's all the meditation that goes on in here." Didn't tell exactly, but that she was standing in front of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that the devotees are chanting here, and this is the focus of our whole mission in here, this room. This is the hub of the spiritual world in Scotland. But sometimes people can pick up from these things. So, and there's so much auspiciousness by the Sanktan movement, distribution of prasadam, distribution of books, and the holy name. These are our three main things, the three-pronged attack. So we just have to dedicate our life to serving these activities. This is the mission. If we don't do these things, then it's no longer a mission. We just become concerned with ourselves. And the nature of that is you just end up becoming more and more concerned with yourself. But if we're concerned with others, we don't have to worry about ourselves. We automatically benefit. Okay, we'll just stop there. ISKCON Govinda ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Nitai Gaur Premanandi Haribo. Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki.